Technology has improved dramatically over the past 30 years. There's more tools, computers are faster. The cost for making it, say, a video game or a movie has plummeted. Yet, why does animation keep getting more expensive and not less? Of course, the answer involves economics, wage competition, and the fundamental misunderstanding of what technology actually does. Let me explain 7 reasons why animation will always be expensive. This is going to be the big one here. Baumol's cost disease. Yes. In 1967, economist William Baumol identified something called cost disease. It's not really a disease, it's just the function of a healthy economy. A classic example would be a string quartet. In 1800, it took 4 musicians 30 minutes to perform Beethoven. In 2024, it's still going to take those 4 musicians 30 minutes. The productivity hasn't changed. You can't make them play faster without ruining the music. You can't reduce it to 3 musicians. The output stays exactly the same. But musicians today earn 10 times what they earned in 1800, adjusted for inflation. Why? Well, because wages rise economy-wide, even in sectors where productivity stays flat. These people still need to eat. These people still need to pay rent and all of that. Where it is. If musicians didn't get these raises, they would quit and work in another industry where productivity has increased and wages rose accordingly. Animation fundamentally has the same problem. It is labor intensive. You cannot significantly speed up the time it takes to animate a scene. Technology helps somewhat, but the core work in artists creating frames and checking quality and making creative decisions cannot be automated. Like the string quartet, animation productivity is relatively stagnant while wages must rise to compete economy-wide. This is Baumol's cost disease, and it is permanent. And of course, this is Jevon's paradox again, but also anchoring bias. Better tools don't reduce the work, they raise expectations. In the 90s, two-dimensional animation was acceptable for television. Flat colors, everything but the mouths moving, limited frames per second. Audiences accepted this because that's what the technology could produce efficiently. Today, audiences expect near Pixar quality even from indie YouTube animations. Because, once again, the anchoring bias, a cognitive bias where people rely too heavily on the first piece of information they receive. If their first exposure to independent animation was a 3D animated short with a lot of money put into it, well, guys, that's their baseline expectation. Sophisticated lighting, detailed character models, complex particle effects. The technology enables this complexity, but creating it requires enormous labor. Better tools didn't reduce the hours needed, they just enabled higher quality output that the audiences now demand as the baseline. This is the technology trap. Tools improve and quality expectations rise to match, and the labor required stays the same or even increases. You're not making animation faster, you're making better animation in the same amount of time. And better costs the same or more than adequate used to cost. When animation went digital, it fundamentally changed who animators compete with now for jobs. A modern animator needs to know Python for scripting, C++ for rendering engines, Blender or Autodesk Maya for 3D work. These are software engineering skills. These are the same skills that could get you hired at Google or Boeing or Nvidia. Or if you like that American taxpayer money, you could go to Lockheed Martin and get paid way more. Animation studios pay nowhere near that amount. Why the gap? Because once again, animation productivity is relatively stagnant while tech productivity has exploded. These companies can afford massive salaries because their workers produce enormous value per hour, or they're funded by the government if you're Lockheed Martin. But animators are competing for the same talent pool. Studios must raise these wages to retain talent or lose them to various industries like tech, like aviation, like aerospace, or the defense industry, because yes, you can get hired at Lockheed Martin to design missiles and bombs. But anyway, even though animation productivity has not increased at the same rate as tech, wages must rise to prevent sheer talent drain. This is Baumol's cost disease, accelerated by direct competition with the highest paying sectors in the economy. We've talked about the angering bias. Let's talk about the availability heuristic, which is the same thing, but like not really the same thing. Quality only goes in one direction, up. This is the ratchet effect. Once audiences have seen high quality animation, they won't accept lower quality animation. You can't release something that looks like it's from 1995 in 2026 and expect modern audiences to watch it. The baseline keeps ratcheting upward. We have many independent animation series maintaining their theatrical quality visuals and complex action sequences and professional production values. The tools enable this quality, but achieving it requires the same or more labor than simpler animation required decades ago. You can't lower this bar, it must only stay rising, and meeting the higher bar costs more. And also due to the fact that these independent animation studios and whatnot are free, this creates a secondary anchoring bias where, oh, I'm going to watch independent animation for free because I'm not going to pay for it no matter how much it costs. Basically nuking the potential of making this ever viable to make revenue from anywhere else besides, you know, the He-Man strategy where you just do it for merchandising, or well, like the Sentai strategy. Anyway, yes, software still costs money. Animation software is not free. Maya costs $1,600 per year per seat. Adobe Creative Suite costs $600 per year. Rendering farms are expensive to operate. These tools are subscriptions. These are ongoing costs. And of course, training time. Learning Blender takes months. Mastering it takes years. That is time spent not producing. As we all know, 9 women cannot make a baby in a month. This is why adding people to a late software project only makes it later. Human labor is still essential. When software updates, you need to retrain. What if Maya or Blender goes through a massive update? Suddenly, you just have to hope and pray to God that your shit doesn't get absolutely demolished by the new update. And once again, we're going back to Baumol over here. Animation requires manual labor. An artist draws or models the characters, an artist animates the frames, a separate artist does the rigging and checking the quality, and human creativity and judgment are required at every individual step. AI can help with some tasks, like in-betweening or coloring or background generation, but enjoy trying to do any of that without getting a massive, and I mean a massive shitstorm from the broader internet at hand. It can't replace the artist making creative choices about timing and expression and composition. Labor is expensive, but it's still insanely essential for the prospect of animation. Many animators accept below market wages because they love animation. This is the passion subsidy. You see it a lot in the movie industry, the art industry, any place where it's like arts and crafts. You know what I'm saying, bruh? They'll work for $60,000 when they can make $150,000 a year at Google because they're passionate about the work. But of course, this only works when the work base is young and they don't have a lot of responsibilities. Oh shit! People want to save for retirement and pay rent and have children and all that. The passion subsidy eventually burns out. Talented animators will leave for jobs that pay what they're worth. Studios lose experienced workers and must train new ones who will also eventually leave. This will create a constant drain on institutional knowledge and drives up training costs. Animation is still expensive because of structural economic reasons that technology can't fix. Labor-intensive sectors have rising costs even when productivity stays stagnant. Technology raised quality expectations without reducing the hours needed because, again, it is manual labor. Animators compete with tech sector wages and industry and aerospace and defense because they have a similar skill quality. Quality ratchet, software costs money, the work is fundamentally manual, and the passion subsidy eventually burns out, leading to a large amount of worker turnover. None of these are temporary problems, these are the structural features of how animation works in a modern economy. Better tools help, but they don't reduce the costs because they just enable higher quality that audiences demand. Wages must compete with other sectors, and this is why animation will always be expensive, ladies and gentlemen. Because, listen, guys, it's like trying to squeeze juice out of a rock. Like, it doesn't matter how hard you squeeze the rock, if you ain't burning them out, if you ain't making them overworked, if you ain't paying them shit, congratulations, you ain't reducing costs of nothing. So, guys, see you guys next time. I'll do my next video on how Stardew Valley is conservative propaganda. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Thanks.